Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today I am very excited to be talking to you about one of my favorite games, maybe of all time, definitely of 2024, and that is My Time at Sandrock. This game is made by a developer, Pathia Games. They are based out of China, and they just make these really lovely, cozy life sim building, crafting RPGs. Their last one was called My Time at Portia, and it took place in this beautiful little green hillside community. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world. So you have all kinds of interesting ruins to explore and lots of interesting lore built on that. Now, fast forward to this year, and we have My Time at Sandrock. In this one, you take on the role of a builder going to this desert community that has really been hit upon by some hard times. Water is very scarce. People have kind of left the city. There's not a lot of resources and reasons for people to stay, other than these people just have gumption and they're here to stick it out and make it work. So you come in as a builder and you're helping to reconstruct their water tower, help with different projects around the city, and we start to uncover some deeper plots and conspiracies along the way. But overall, it's still just a very relaxing and approachable RPG. One of the things that makes it so much fun is how deep the social relationships are with the people in your town. So one of the ways that that's reflected is in your skill trees. This game has 4 main skill trees. You obviously have your combat, where you can use a bunch of different weapons like swords or spears. Or my favorite was the daggers, just because of how fast-paced they were and the great combos that you could use with them. Then you have gathering. There's lots of different gathering methods that you can use, like picking rocks with your pick hammer or chopping down, not trees. We don't chop down trees in this game, but like scraps of wood and different materials that you find out on the plains. You have your workshop skill tree, and that's based on your factory production and your crafting and recycling. And then you have your social tree, and this one is built by interacting with the townspeople and developing your relationships with them. As you develop relationships with them, they'll send you gifts and you can unlock different quests and also romances. Now, the people in this town just have so much character. There was a few that really surprised me, and one of them is Mayor Trudy. So when you first meet her, she seems so timid, and I'm kind of looking at her going okay, how did you end up mayor? And then on the way back to town from one of our quests, we're attacked by these hyenas, and I see this bitch pull out a gun and start popping off on these hyenas. And I was like, okay, Mayor Trudy, that's how you got in there. And actually, she's a very capable leader. She just doesn't have that charisma. So she's not so great at talking to people, but she's definitely somebody that you want at your back when things go from push to shove. In the real world, one of the things that deeply concerns me is climate change. We've done untold damage to our planet, and we see it manifesting in all kinds of ways. Even out here in Portland, we've had record lows for our rivers drying up. We've had heat bubbles that have destroyed crops, and even killed old ladies in their homes from heat exhaustion and heat stroke in an environment that, compared to most of the world, is one of the most temperate. So if we're experiencing that here, the devastation elsewhere is just extreme. And where that ties into this game is you're living in a post-apocalyptic world, so the devastation to their planet has effectively already happened, and you're in this desert environment. So it's very hot, resources are very scarce, and I love the focus on how the people adapt to that. So water conservation is an important aspect of the game. You do use water to cool your machines and in your production of goods and services for the community, but you do have to be careful with that usage. And then there's other mechanics that are tied in there too. For example, you're not allowed to chop down trees because trees are scarce and we need them for shade and resources. And then there's also a big focus on recycling. There's multiple levels of recycling machines that you can use, all kinds of materials that you can pick up from litter in the streets to different scraps while mining, and then turn those recycled bits into new machines and weapons and things for the game. Beyond that, I really love the level of support that Pathia has provided for their games. All throughout my time at Portia, they continued adding new content, new quests, new cosmetics, bug updates, patch fixes, all that good stuff. And they've been doing the same thing with my time at Sandrock. Most recently, they did a graphical update where they fixed some artistic decisions and also improved on the lighting and the appearance of skin and just making their game look the best that it could. With my time at Portia, one of the biggest pieces of criticism that people had for it is that it was a single player game. People want to be able to play with their friends, and I do understand that. For me, I appreciate a focus on a single player experience because I think that it tends to result in you getting better storylines, better relationships with the community, and generally a better game. Whereas a lot of times with multiplayer, there's kind of a trade-off that happens. First off, they have to focus more development resources into making the multiplayer aspect happen at all. But secondly, if you have multiple people engaging in the storyline, a lot of times you're not able to give each individual the same intimacy in a group as you would if they were by themselves. So for my time at Sandrock, they made a concerted effort to give us multiplayer. Now, it's not as feature rich as the single player experience, but you can still get a friend and go to Sandrock together, and there are objectives to fulfill and do together. And so I think that just as an evolution of the My Time series, My Time at Sandrock blows My Time at Portia out of the water. You have multiplayer, you have better graphics, you have more story, more romance options, just kind of everything that this game is giving you is so much more. And I think it's super impressive. The main storyline will probably take you over 100 hours. It took me about 175 to get to the end, and there's still so much more that I could do. So like decorating our house, building a house, changing your workshop. I don't even think that I got everything fully expanded in my initial playthrough. One thing that I would like to do is I'm waiting for some more updates, and then I want to come back and try romancing some different characters and kind of exploring their quest lines a little bit more. There's just a lot to do and experience in this game. My biggest critique of it personally would have to be in the pacing. Everything is kind of time locked on you. So let's say you complete a main story quest. Well, now you have to go through 3 in-game days before the next story quest will progress and continue. So there were a lot of times where I would either be waiting on the next thing in the game to come up, or I would be working on a quest that was just taking way longer than it should have to complete. And so I think that there's a little bit of tightening that can be done in that. I almost feel like the game could have been 15% shorter, and then they could have taken that 15% and expanded on the systems and things that they have already in place. Just as a broad level example of that, there is a mini game that they have called Critters, and it's just a cute little card game. It's almost kind of like rock, paper, scissors in a way, but it's also just very basic. I think it would have been cool, even if it happened later in the game, if they had incorporated maybe some more cards and some more game modes with that system. But even that aside, this game is so rich with different mini games. One of my favorite is one where you get to do a little barbecuing with your community. People will come up and they'll place an order, and then you have to assemble it really quick and barbecue it up for them. And then there's like dance battles and also sparring. So remember, this is like a desert frontier community. People have to be able to defend themselves and defend their town. So there's kind of this social aspect where if you go up and you challenge somebody to a fight, most of the people in the town are down to fight you. There's a few exceptions, right? You can't fight the kids, you can't fight the old people, and that's fine. With them, you get to play your Critters matches. And when you do this, sometimes you can get a little bit of gold, and you also deepen your relationships with the community. Overall, it was just a very heartwarming game. I laughed, I cried, and I'm so excited to see where the My Time series goes in the future. Pathia is a very talented developer, and seeing that level of progression from My Time at Portia to My Time at Sandrock, and knowing that they have newer and interesting games on the horizon is very exciting. What other cities could we go visit? Maybe Highwind, and they could have a flying mechanic to it. I would be really interested in seeing us go to Vega 5, and then they can just go full on sci-fi with the game. There's lots of untapped potential in this rich and beautiful world that they've created. And that is my review of My Time at Sandrock. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and give your girl a subscribe so that you can be the first to know when I'm launching new videos in the future. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, this is Pretty Guardian, logging out.